Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Go Blue with Stu podcast. I'm your host, Stu Douglass. We're solo today again. Had a few guests fall through once again, but I got some guests lined up for the upcoming weeks. Should be good. So stay tuned for that. I'm excited for that. We're going to break down the craziness that is Michigan basketball in the last couple of weeks. They're finding their footing, and people are up and down on them. And I have been too, watching them a little bit, but they had the talent there, and they've been showing it the last couple of games against Penn State and Maryland. Central Michigan game, is it a fluke? No, I don't think it's a fluke. I think it shows what their weaknesses are in certain areas, and sometimes those just compound into one game, into a bad loss. We'll break that down kind of game by game. And I want to get into the good stuff because they look really good, and I really like what they're doing in the last couple of games. But we'll start with the bad, kind of get that out of the way. That is Central Michigan. You know, there's a lot of things to talk about watching that game. It was probably frustrating for a fan. Like, you watched the game and you just saw that Central Michigan just wasn't on the same level talent-wise. Wasn't even close. Like, Reggie Bass was their point guard, and it was frustrating every time the ball went in the hoop for him. And of course, he has to hit that tough three when him and Doug have been jawing for basically most of the second half, and he has to hit that shot on Doug. That's just annoying as hell. He's like 3 for 12 or something. I don't know what he was from 3, but it wasn't great. And he's got to be the one that hits the dagger. That's just kind of how some of those nights go. But the game was basically CMU playing junk and just hanging around, and Michigan not being able to separate themselves. But it was all up to Michigan, which is that's a good way to lose instead of just being absolutely dominated, kind of like how they were against UNC in a lot of ways, even though that game was close at the end. But they were, these kind of things can be glass half full because they're very correctable. You start off the game, and first, Central Michigan doesn't have their top scorer. So you can see right away that they're kind of lost offensively, but defensively they get into that zone, and it's kind of a junky zone. It's matchup, it's high in a lot of ways, and you would think that Michigan would be able to get some post touches for Hunter, with some movement, but they really weren't at all. And it was really kind of frustrating to watch. They kept putting him high, and he kept kind of floating up towards the free throw line and then setting screens. There was no really plan of attack. They started up the game scoring really well, broke the press for a Jet dunk, I think, then another Kobe layup, and a Jet 3. Yeah, it was out of bounds play for a Jet 3, and the next play a Kobe layup to start up 7-0. They look like they're going to dominate this team completely, and they can't handle it. Well, CMU just stays in that zone, and sure enough, Michigan has ran their sets against it, and now CMU knows exactly what they're doing, and there's really no ball movement. Like, the entire time, why their offense stalled was because they kept running the ball screen. Doug would have it on one of the wings, usually the left wing, so he could use his right hand to go towards the top of the key. And when you do that, when you set that screen, you have one of the top guys in the 2-3 guarding the ball, right? And then you have the other guy on the top of the zone, right there, basically at the top of the key. So it's just a switch. Like, Hunter is now setting a screen into a guard-to-guard switch. There's no big that has to hedge that. There's like really not much movement there. Now, what CMU is doing, they're kind of bringing the center of the zone up a little bit to help, like maybe on some penetration. But really, it was just kind of a guard-to-guard switch defensively for them. And then Michigan really wasn't moving the ball and punishing them by, hitting it quick to that strong side coming off that screen. There just wasn't a lot of movement there. With some of those zones, you have to, you can run your sets. That kind of gets tricky. You're going to have to feel it out how they're going to play it, because every junk zone is a little different. You can run your man-to-man sets a little bit and kind of see how they're going to react. What you can't do is just run the same play over and over and over again, because then they just figured out all the rotations. Like, zone has everything to do with rotations. Definitely man-to-man does, but zone is very like specific rotations, right? It's like, okay, when the guard is at this spot on the court, the top guy, the top right guy has to take it, and then when they swing, the bottom wing has to help up a little bit, and then you rotate back when he swings to the corner. So it's all kind of in unison there. And what you try and do with any zone is just throw them through a loop, trying to get them to be moving at all times. And eventually there's going to be a spot where one guy has to overhelp, and then his space that he's usually guarding is empty. And Michigan just didn't do that. They just kind of held the ball, and they just kept running ball screen stuff. If they'd have moved the ball around, if they simply just, all right, we're going to throw it to the right corner. Let's say Doug starts on the right wing. You throw it to the right corner, throw it back, throw it to the top of the key, throw it to the left wing. Hunter gets a post up on the other side, a lot more open, instead of just him just floating with his hands up in the lane at 10 feet. And then you're just kind of looking at him dribble the ball at the top of the key. And you got 4 CMU guys, one guy guarding the ball, and 4 CMU guys ready to be like, all right, we know exactly what's going to happen if he telegraphs his pass into Hunter at 10 feet. So it really wasn't, they didn't make it difficult on Central Michigan at all. And I didn't, you run junk defenses because you're not good at defense. Like, that's just how it is. You don't have the matchup capabilities, and you got to find a unique way to punish teams like that. And I think some of that's on, preparing for a defense like that. Sometimes you don't know how they're going to play it. They did play it the game before, so they knew that they're going to face some zone. And I'll get back to some of the set stuff, but I think you see the difference with Hunter. And I think it starts with Hunter. I think Hunter has got to be the leader out there. He's the most experienced, most accomplished player out there. One of the oldest player out there, right? Isn't he the oldest? That sounds crazy, but I mean, I was the oldest. Me and Zach were the oldest when we were juniors. So yeah, he's got to be demanding the ball in a game like CMU, like he did against Maryland, like he did against Penn State. I mean, he just absolutely dominated, and he controlled the game like he was Hunter in Penn State and Maryland. And he just didn't against Central Michigan. And somebody mentioned in shout out Ant Wright, one of his halftime kind of lounges that he has in the game last night, and they said they asked Ant if he ever had a game like Central Michigan that like kickstarted a team. And we have. No, if there's two unique ways that we kind of had one. I think it was my freshman year, we played Savannah State. Shout out to Savannah, that's where I got married. So we played Savannah State. We barely beat them. Actually, Novak missed a dunk to win the game in regulation, which is pretty funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but it's kind of funny now. Or funny for him. I felt bad for him at the time. But missed a dunk, and then we barely won because PD, Deshaun Sims, was just killing it. The rest of the team, we were just horrible. And that was a bit of a wake-up call for us, but we escaped with a win there. Another one was my junior year. We're 1-4 in the Big Ten, 1-5 or something like that. And 1-4, and we faced Minnesota, and we should have killed Minnesota. They were horrible. I think that was Hoffarber back then, or maybe he was gone. I don't know. That team was not very good, and we lost to them. And that was a huge wake-up call. That was a coming to Jesus moment. We had a whole team meeting powwow, I think, like I hear they did against Central Michigan. And we just changed. We looked in ourselves instead of pointing the fingers at other people. And when we started taking responsibility for ourselves is when everything changed. And I don't know if that's what it was, but I definitely see a difference with Hunter, where in the Maryland game, he got back to his ways. There was a possession there where he was coming down the court, and it was kind of a soft break, and Kobe was bringing up the left side, and Terrence was in the left corner, strong side. And Hunter was kind of at the top of the key, and he was pointing at Kobe, even before he posted up, pointing at Kobe to pass the ball to Terrence so he could post up. And Kobe passed the ball to Terrence, and Terrence the man actually like slouched off because he was trying to discourage the pass into the post, and Terrence actually shot a 3 aggressive. I loved it, and it went in. It was great. That was like that started out the game. They were up 2-0, and I think that put them up 5-0. But I hadn't seen Hunter do that distinctly, like that aggressive, in a while. And we saw that a lot last year. We saw that a lot even the year before. His freshman year, he was out there pointing to guys, like pointing to the point guard, like, all right, pass it there, I'm going to set a screen there. Or like, you come over here, I'm going to set a screen here, or pass it there, I'm going to go post up. He was directing traffic in a lot of ways as a center, and I think he's gotten away from that, because when you get in a junk zone, everyone starts looking at each other like, what should we do? We don't have a set for this, but you do, like, just play basketball, like, just be yourself. And that's the beauty of a junk zone, is that it discourages guys from their normal game, because when you get in college, you think, okay, we have a set for this. And then when you don't have a lot of sets for it, or a lot of base offense for it that you love, it makes guys start to question themselves. And we've seen Hunter question himself, I think, in the last, UNC a little bit, Kentucky a little bit, and he shouldn't. He could have killed in those games, and he's getting back to his confident ways of controlling the game. Even though he didn't have 20 points last night, like, he's putting so much pressure on the defense when he's aggressive, causing fouls, like causing guys to foul out. I mean, how many times have guys been in foul trouble trying to guard him the last 2 games? It's like multiple guys per team in foul trouble trying to guard him. That's massive. When you're going to your 9th guy on the bench, that throws a wrench in what you can do. Throws a wrench in how you perform offensively, like fluidly, efficiently. It affects your performance on defense overall, like efficiency. And all it takes is one step. I've said this before, all it takes is one step defensively, and all it takes is like a little delay on offense to throw a wrench in your plans. And that 9th guy is not doing it as well as the starting center. That's just probably not going to happen. If it is, then that guy should be starting. So that's it. That's huge in and of itself, let alone the scoring and the passing, and all the other things that it comes with. The other part I want to make, because they're going to see more zone. I mean, the Big Ten, not as much, but I could see, like, I don't know. I don't think Michigan State will do it. I could see other teams doing it. I don't really know who. I doubt Wisconsin, maybe Iowa, maybe Northwestern for sure. They would do it. They would throw that at them. Although Northwestern's got a big that they think maybe it can match up with Hunter, even though it can't. But they're going to see more zone defense and maybe more matchup junky stuff. And they ran one set where, instead of running a ball screen with the point guard starting at the left wing and going towards the middle, they started it from the top of the key and they went towards the side. They kind of went down the lane line. They tried to, like, go down the lane on the right side, like not towards the corner, but like turn the corner around, like towards the wing, but then turn the corner to get into the paint. And you put pressure on. So this is different. Think about this. When you set a screen, you have 2 guys at the top of the zone, okay? And you can set a screen on the outside of them, like going towards the wing. Who has to help on that? Well, the wing on the bottom that's supposed to be guarding the corner is supposed to help up on that. So if you get that guy to help up, then who do you have in the corner? Well, you go towards Jet side. Now you have a Jet on the corner, or you put Joey Baker, and you got Joey Baker in the corner there. Well, they weren't, when Michigan was running that type of ball screen, they weren't helping off of the corner because the shooters were too good. And then you could see Doug get in there about 12 feet, wide open jumper. I think there's some other variations where Hunter should be on the backside, and then you make the big step up, because then that's his responsibility to guard the point guard. Whatever, there's some variations there, but they started to do a little bit, and then they just kind of kept going after and after and after, and it just kind of didn't work out. They eventually attacked it a little better in the second half, and they just kind of missed shots. I think Jet was like 0 for 5 in the last 10 minutes from 3, which, not like him. Didn't he shot like 3 for 11 from 3? That's my dog Carol, if you can hear her. So 0 for 5, it's just not like them. They attacked pretty well, but overall, I thought that they kind of figured it out. And then the last part is that they should be able to have some variation. Like we've talked about them having variation in their offense with man. Well, when Doug went out, Kobe was in, and Kobe was a game changer. I mean, Kobe kept him in that game. Kobe does a lot of things that also don't show up on the stat sheet. He is the most aggressive by far attacking the paint. I mean, Doug does a good job of penetrating in the defense, but he doesn't get as deep as Kobe and as straight line. Doug is just a little different, and he does a lot of good things, but Kobe's very much like, all right, I'm getting to the paint here, and I'm taking this baseline no matter what. Super aggressive. There was a point in the game last night. They actually missed an out of bounds call that Kobe stepped out of bounds, but he was determined to get to the baseline, and he ended up making a pass, and they scored, and it shouldn't have counted. But he's just that determined to get in the paint and score. And when Doug went out, he ran the point guard, and he was running the ball screen. And then as soon as Doug came back in, Doug was the only one running the ball screens. And I think that's on like a coaching staff where you got to have some variation there. Like you should even have Jet be able to run the ball screen up top, because if they're going to run kind of slack kind of defense, if Doug was able to get open 15 footers, why couldn't have Jet? And so it was, I think it was a learning experience for them. They hadn't quite seen something quite like that. I don't believe, I'm trying to think of who else. I mean, they've seen zone, but that was just a little different, and it was all game. And they never like really matched up into man-to-man unless there was like a post up. But it was just very different for them. So I think it was overall a good learning experience. I mean, it sounded like in the interview last night, Juwan said they all came in and they talked and kind of figured it out. And every player had their solutions. They came with solutions, is what Juwan said. And they've looked a lot better. They looked a lot better defensively. They've just been making mistakes. I mean, the amount of offensive rebounds in Central Michigan, that was another thing. Like there was one possession where guy got fouled in a three, shouldn't have fouled him. He hits the first two free throws. It was Reggie Bass, of all people who can't really shoot all that well. Hits the first two free throws, misses this third one. CMU gets an offensive rebound off of lazy boxing out, and then they hit a three. 5 points on one possession. You just can't have it. That is backbreaking. And there was a lot of times, I don't know how many points they scored off offensive rebounds, but it, cuts down on the amount of Michigan possessions that they have, which bodes well for CMU. They scored a lot of points off of it, which bodes well for CMU. So there was a lot of mistakes that happened, not only on rotations, on boxing out, on kind of being a little stagnant offensively, not being aggressive, not sharing the ball quick. And they looked a lot better in Maryland. Now, the Maryland game was interesting, especially if you looked at like a box score. You would have said that, this was just Hunter, and it was kind of maybe fluky, even though it was a big point differential. But that was Hunter like coming into the game and controlling the game from the get-go. Like I said, it was he wasn't going to lose, and I think he still could have had like 40, but that's because he's that good. He just wasn't going to lose. He wasn't going to take no for an answer. And the other guys, I think Jet didn't shoot very well. I think Kobe was fine. Doug was fine. Overall, really didn't matter. They just kind of dominated so early that it really didn't matter. And in the second half, I mean, I barely even watched the second half. There was not much to see. Kind of 10 minutes left. It was just gave up. Michigan did a really good job of keeping their foot on the pedal to start that second half. Hunter in particular, and keep going, not settle, not be happy with where you had it in the first half, which was huge, because that even 30-point lead, it can turn to 16 points. Let's say it turns into 20 points with like 14 minutes left, and you cut that to 10 with 10 minutes left, or like 15 with 10 minutes left. You just chip away at it. It's really they really will never go away. So you got to put your throat on them. I just did a really bad job of explaining that. You guys understand that teams can come back. I don't know. I'm trying to explain dumb math on that, but overall, they improved on a lot of things. I think their box outs were better. They still had a lot of mistakes. I think defensively, they did a good job of discouraging Young, the point guard for Maryland. The Charlotte transfer was a good scorer. He was just not really aggressive at all. I don't know if he just had an off day, or Doug was just getting into him that much, and Kobe, like they bothered him. I think Hunter did in the last couple of games. He's been hedging a lot better, like more aggressively, where he's cutting off the passing lane, which is huge. You got to use that 7-1 frame and those arms to cut off the passing lane, especially against smaller point guards. You got to get in there, because as soon as you don't stay tall, like doesn't matter how tall you are, now you're just like the width of your body is the only, in your head is the only thing blocking the passing lane. And I can pass right around that. So he was active there. They're just a lot more active. Now they're still missing rotations in that Maryland game that were concerning. I mean, there was a lot of open threes that Maryland had. I mean, Maryland just couldn't buy a bucket to start the game. And confidence breeds confidence, and a lack of confidence breeds a lack of confidence. Like guys were pressing after about that 6th or 7th missed shot in a row. You press, and you're pressing, and then you're like, all right, give me the ball, I'll make it. And then all you're thinking about is just forcing up a make. So it was a combo of Michigan playing solid, but also Maryland just having a horrible night, really a horrible night. But they improved. Like overall, they improved from Central Michigan to Maryland with their, help side with their rotations in particular. Shout out Joey. I think Joey's really good at foreseeing where the rotations are coming in. I mean, I would imagine he listened to Coach K for 4 years, and Coach K will MF you hard if you are not playing the exact way that he thinks you should be playing. So he kind of gets it there from, he's the one that honestly boxes out the best of anybody. He is quick in rotations, quicker than anybody in rotations. He is in help side, helping on the roll man on ball screens, probably more than anybody. Anybody will have a tough time guarding quick point guards on the perimeter, but I think he's done a really good job of being solid defensively and then providing a spark offensively with his 3-point shot and the spacing, the gravity that he is now demanding with his shot that he really has been demanding all year. And this team overall needs guys like, I've always thought this in the Big Ten, in college basketball in general, we need scoring off the bench. We need guys off. Well, if the other team doesn't score for like 4 minutes, when you got the bench guys in from like, let's say 14 minutes in the first half to 10 minutes, scoring doesn't matter as much. Like if you're all sound defensively, your scoring is going to go up and down. It's going to fluctuate game to game just by making shots, let alone like being talented and efficient. Excuse me. So I think it's huge for a guy like Joey to come off the bench and be sound. Now, a guy like Will is super energetic in the Central Michigan. I don't know if you guys watched the Big Ten Plus coverage, but the Central Michigan game, they kept calling him Test Cheddar. And I was like, they really thought that's what it was. I don't know how they didn't have it, but it was pretty funny. A guy like Will is super high energy, but he's still figuring out like the anticipation of rotations and help side and stuff like that. And boxing out, being able to be on help side and find your man and boxing out. It's a real skill. Like finding your man when you're in the middle of the paint and the ball, let's say the ball is in the right corner. This was a drill we used to do all the time, and it's ridiculous. One-on-one drill, box out drill, by the way. It's like, it's impossible. And the ball be in the right corner, you'd be in dead center of the court line. And you'd be like, all right, we're going to put the shot up with the bubble on the rim. Okay, so the ball's definitely going to miss. And now you got to go box out your guy is in the left corner, and he's running straight at you like a bull and seeing red. And then you got to box him out. You have to find him. So you have to face up to him, find him, then turn your body and put a butt on him. Now, if anybody's going to turn their back to me, I'm just going to lose them like the other way, right? If you like turned your right, I'm going to go left. You turn your left, I'm going to go right. So it's a real skill to have. It's really difficult. And I think Joey is the best out on this team so far. So he's valuable in a lot of different ways. So I'm just putting it that way. But overall, some key takeaways, before I wrap this up, that Maryland game was a huge turning point. There's a few key stats. One was 15 assists. That was huge. They really got aggressive. They executed, and they shared the ball. Like when you get aggressive and you get in the paint, and Kobe found it a few times, Doug, like when you start being aggressive and break down the defense is when you're going to get easy baskets. And I don't think I've seen Hunter get as many easy baskets in a while as he did in the last couple of games. And that's huge. That is everything. You need that. Like I said before, when Doug took over point guard, I don't really care about mistakes. We're going to talk about Doug's efficiency and people worried about it and the stats and all that stuff. And I totally understand it completely. But you have to put pressure on a defense, like, because that opens up things for other guys. And you can't just be having Hunter get double teamed the entire time. So they were doing that. And I really want to compliment Kobe on that. I think Doug did a really good job of that for sure. And he's doing a really good job, trying to control the offense and figure that all out. It is a whirlwind for him. But I think Kobe has been so consistent. I mean, in that CMU game, the second half, it was him keeping them in the game. And I talked about it with Ant Wright, and he agreed. Well, actually, he said it, and I agreed. But the point is that he does a lot of different things that even we don't see on the stat sheet aggressively, like those hockey assists that people talk about in basketball now, that initial aggressiveness to set up the next pass, set up the next pass. And he's been doing that really, really well. And he's been judging where to go with the ball. Like, he's a really good decision maker in time, which is very difficult. How do I explain this? Not to belittle people, but if you haven't like been in a big game where you have the ball at 10 feet and you kind of are open, but there's like, you have to read the defense, and in real time, you don't know if that big man's going to step up to help, or somebody's going to step up to help, or if the guy behind you is going to recover, or if the guy behind you is like 6'7" and he can block your shot, or he's 5'11". It's all kind of feel, and you can mess it up so easy. Like, you can just pass the ball and somebody is just standing right there because you think they're going to help up. So real time decisions is a very undervalued skill, or it's a very let's say, talked about skill. I don't really know how to say it. I think you guys understand what I'm saying, but he is really good at in-time decisions, like spur of the moment decisions. Well, I'm going to shoot this layup. I'm going to get into the paint. I'm just going to shoot this jumper. And he's even when he's gotten in trouble, he's been able to get out of it with a bit of a little lean fadeaway jumper that's been pretty money. Like, his mid-range has been money. So whenever something doesn't kind of pan out, maybe if he's expected something to pan out and it didn't, he's been very good at getting out of it, or just moving the ball, or at least getting up a 10-footer that's not like super difficult for him because he is capable. I mean, well, I know a lot of guys, fans watch like guys shoot fadeaways in college, and it's gotten less and less and less, but it's not a bad shot from like 10, 12 feet. That fadeaway jumper, to me, that's like the easiest jumper in basketball. That I always loved that. That was my favorite. But Kobe's done really good with that. That's one of my key takeaways. I want to get back to the key stats in the Maryland game. So 15 assists. They only shot 11 threes in that Maryland game, which tells you a lot. It tells you a lot that Hunter was aggressive and that other guys were cutting off of him, that Kobe was aggressive getting the paint. I mean, Jet was more aggressive. I think he only shot 4 threes compared to the 11 against CMU. So they just kind of kept it rolling. And 29 free throw attempts. And I don't know how many of that came in the second half. Honestly, I should have kept track of that, what was in the first half. But they were just overall just more aggressive. So you basically it boils down to that point, right? You're going to get a lot of benefits from being direct and making direct decisions. Like, as soon as you get on your heels and you're just kind of looking around at each other and you're not attacking and you're popping in a 3-point line all the time, or you're posting up from 15 feet, like, that's easy for the defense. It's so much easier for the defense. So that's been something that I want to see them continue on. Now, you're watching the Penn State game, and I mean, the cliche was it's a game of runs. I think they even mentioned that in the broadcast, and it literally was just only a game of runs last night in the second half. It was wild to see. They got up 14. You're like, all right, put them away now. Keep them. Maybe we won't get it to 20, but let's at least keep it around 10 and we'll score some buckets. No, it was your typical college game with confidence breeds confidence. And like, it was like 3 or 4 possessions at a time. It was pretty crazy, but they were more direct there as well on both sides of the ball. They weren't making mistakes. And when you cut down on mistakes, I tweeted about it last night. The one mistake they made was, oh, my light went out. All right, we're back. Light is back on. We're all hooked up. What I was saying, again, they were just more direct with everything. They shot 25 free throws. I don't know what they're averaging on the year, but it hasn't been over 20. And 2 games in a row, they're over 20 free throws. And that tells you a lot about how they are running their offense and about how aggressive Hunter has been and about how aggressive the other guys are feeling. Like, they just really spread it around. I mean, Terrence was efficient, 8 points. Hunter, relatively efficient. I mean, 5 of 9 for the line. He could do better than that. He could have had 20. He had 17 points, efficient shooting. Kobe, 5 of 12, 1 of 4 from 3, but 14 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. He, again, was just putting and it was probably like 3 hockey assists that I saw. So he's really creating a lot there. I really think they need to get him the ball. I think they really did a really good job. That was one thing, they were balanced. I think they were very well balanced between having Doug be aggressive in the pick and roll. Okay, now we're going to run a handoff for Kobe. Okay, now we're going to set a pin down for Jet. They were just on it. Like, and I think that comes, like, it's not like they didn't have those plays before. It is partially, and a lot of it is on the players to say, okay, we see this. We actually can take responsibility for this. We don't have to look at Juwan every time down the court to call something. You don't have to do that. It bothered the hell out of me every time Beeline wanted to, call a play. This was early on. And then my junior and senior year, I could do it because I was the second point guard. I wasn't bringing the ball up, but I knew exactly I was watching the game and what we should be running, who's hot, where the mismatch is. That's patting myself in the back. But like, that makes the offense way more efficient when you can have that. And when players take responsibility for the offense. Now, you can't listen to Tim Hardaway Jr., say, he's going to want 20 pin downs in a row. And even though Tim's crazy talented, like, it's probably just not good for the offense because the defense can just figure it out by then. So, but when you take responsibility for the offense's players, things can change. They can open wide up for you. You not only are you going to be more aggressive because you're taking responsibility for it. You're like, okay, this is our play. Like, I know where the spots are here in this play, and I'm going to be very precise in my movement. And you saw that with Hunter. There was a couple possessions, especially against a mismatch. I think he's learning how to deal with that this year with a mismatch. You just go. You gotta go. Like, if you wait around, they're still not moving around the perimeter, around the post up as well as I'd like, but you just gotta go. And they're figuring that part out. So that, and then Jet was 14 points, 4-11 from 2, 2 of 5 from 3, not bad. Doug was 12 points, 4 assists, 5-11 from 2, 1 of 2 from 3. Jet got to the free throw line a few times, some great aggressive moves. Terrace was 2 for 2 for 5 points. Joey was awesome from 3. I just love Joey's aggressiveness. I think having his efficiency on defense, and at least just wherewithal and know-how on defense, and then the aggressiveness on offense at 6'8" shooting. There was a couple shots that I thought maybe he didn't have to take, but I don't really care. Like, I think he should be scoring 9 points a game, 2 threes one game, 4 threes another. I think it should be around 6 or 7, 8 3-point attempts a game. I really think you have to find him. I really think he's got to be out there and just you tell him, if you don't shoot when you're open, kind of like let's picture Duncan Robinson for the Heat, right? They punished him for not shooting. And then what happened? They turned out like one of the best, if not best, shooting seasons ever from 3. And maybe don't tell Duncan to go shoot 12 or Joey to shoot 12 threes a game, but that's just not going to happen. That's not how college basketball works. It's different. But I really do think that you can give him a little more leash there that way. And he has. I mean, they've not restricted him at all. Shout out to Juwan. Like, they put him in there and they know he's going to shoot. And I'm pretty sure they tell him, like, you got to put it up, dude. Like, you're 40% three-point shooter. You got to put it up. That's your role. And you're not playing 25 minutes. Maybe he will in a couple of these games because they've been starting to play him with a 3. We'll see how that develops. But that's been good. I really like to see that progress the last couple of games because it has been spotty minutes for the first few games. For all the games before that, really, it went from like 15 to 9 to 18 to 11. So, which can make a big difference for a shooter in rhythm and finding your spots. But those are key takeaways there. It's free throws. It's limiting the offensive rebounding from the opposing team. Assists last night were fine, 11 assists. They only had 3 turnovers. These teams are really trying to force Michigan to play one-on-one, and they're punishing them. And that, Kobe's done a really good job with that. Doug his floaters last night were amazing. His floaters were so good that he actually passed up a wide open layup to shoot a floater. I don't know what he thought the help side was coming, but he was so automatic with that floater that he just shot it and missed it. But he had a huge floater at the end of the game. I love the floater. I am in love with the floater. And so to see Doug do that and take advantage of it as a short guy with kind of no man's land help side defense. So it's that real-time decision. And this is one way you can do it. You get to about 10 feet and you are now let's say the big is like kind of at the rim. He's kind of in between you and Hunter. Okay. You have the ball at 10 feet and you're in the paint and your guy is trying to recover from a ball screen. And the opposing big is in between you and Hunter. And he can't really pass it yet. Like you need him to either commit to stay at Hunter or to help up so you can dump it off to Hunter. And some guys can get all the way to the rim, like if they're athletic enough. Kobe can kind of be a little slippery, kind of has some fluid, slippery movement where you can kind of get to the rim there. But a guy like Doug, who I was, you kind of punish those guys. You have to make them come. You're like, all right, you're not going to come up. Like you're not going to make a decision. I'm not trying to get all the way to the rim because this guy's tall and he might block my shot. I'm just going to make the decision for you. I'm going to shoot a floater here at 10 foot. You make enough of those, you're going to start getting guys helping up. And as soon as you start helping up, as soon as you get opposing bigs to help up, Beeline always said this, never help up. Any big guy, never help up into the paint. Still slide over, try and stay ball you man as much as possible. As soon as you get guys helping up, boom, dump off for Hunter. Easy one, and that's a dunk. You saw a play last night. Kobe got into the paint. Big guy helped up the like straight up towards the opposing goal, up the lane, and then boom, bounce pass. Hunter, easy dunk. And I haven't seen an easy dunk like that for Hunter in a lot of games. So stuff like that has been really fun to watch. And again, the mistakes on the other side of the ball, they just really have not been making as many mistakes. There was back-to-back possessions in the first half. I tweeted about it that they get wide open threes. I mean, Jet got a little confused on his zone defense and they got a wide open three. And then they kind of just got stuck in help side. And again, that hunched over and they weren't really quick on the rotating on the pass from the opposite side. And they passed, I don't know who they passed to, but it was a wide open three. It just couldn't recover in time because they were anticipating the spots. And that was, a back kind of a momentum killing 6-0 run for Penn State. But those mistakes are fixable, which is fun to watch. Like the other mistakes where you can get dominated, just being like dominated on ball screen defense, those were much improved. Terrace was much improved. Hunter was much more aggressive, not only in the hedge, but in the recovery. So it's fun to watch that because I've been there as a player where you just say to yourself, like, all right, I got to do it. I got to take responsibility for this. This is up to me now to play the right way and be consistent. Like, and it takes a lot of focus. People don't understand how much focus that takes. It takes an unreal amount of focus to be consistent every possession. So they're doing that. They're picking that up 3-0 in Big Ten play, and that is awesome. They got Michigan State next. It's going to be, I'm focused in on ball screen defense. You got Hogard and Walker and what they're going to do. They made Pickett last night for Penn State into a scorer, not a passer. And I thought that was beautiful. I thought, fine, Pickett, go for 30. We don't care because the other guys aren't going to be involved. As soon as you saw Lund getting shots up, Folk, is that his name? A white kid that transferred in. Like, you don't want those guys shooting a lot of threes because they're going to make a lot of threes. So when they were getting involved, that was bad for Michigan. When it was just Pickett playing one-on-one, even though he was scoring sometimes, it was slowing down their offense, kind of gets them out of rhythm, I thought, offensively. And it showed with some of their shooting a little bit. But it'll be interesting to see how they play Michigan State that way. I don't know actually what Michigan State has shooters-wise on the perimeter. But Hogard is going to be a big one that they're going to have to figure out. They're going to go in and out of zone. That is for sure. They got to be efficient with that. They got to tighten that up a little bit, but that'll be my key to watch. And then just to see what Michigan State does with Hunter and how they attack him. I think Kobe's going to, I'd watch Kobe. Kobe's going to be the one that you're going to have to turn to. It's going to be a big environment, loud environment for Doug. I think he's not going to back down by any means, but I think there's going to be a situation again where you're going to need Kobe to just drive and get in the paint. Just go get in the paint and see what happens and be aggressive. So that'll be fun to watch. I'll pay attention to that game. We'll be back next week, hopefully with some guests, definitely with a guest. One way or another, we're going to talk Michigan basketball with somebody out there besides just me. And we will get into it, watch the Michigan State game. I don't know if their schedule is next week, but we'll be back early next week to break down the Michigan State game, look forward. And just talk more Michigan basketball. So I appreciate everybody listening out there. I love you all. Chirp me on Twitter. Ask me your questions. But if you can, subscribe and rate me. 5 stars. My mom would really appreciate it. She gets sad when it's anything less. So thank you guys. We'll be back next week. See ya.